In this video, we're going to learn the Claude Code and AI-assisted development workflow in less than 40 minutes. We'll look at Visual Studio Code, GitHub, Node.js, and how do you use all these using Claude Code. So I'm going to go very, very detailed. If you look at all the steps, including what are the prerequisites, what all things you need to be knowing, and any other dependency or things that you should be knowing, go very deep into this. So ultimate objective is when you finish this video, you should be able to build and test a clean to-do application from scratch using Claude Code inside Visual Studio Code. So Visual Studio Code will be the integrated development environment, but the tool we are going to use, or the LLM Claude Code we are going to use. Then we'll improve this, we'll build a very basic application, and then later we're going to improve using step-by-step instructions, and then we'll commit it and then push the code into the GitHub repository. So you will learn AI-assisted workflow. Who this video is for? This is for someone who is a beginner and want to explore into this AI-assisted development workflow. And in future videos, we're going to go deeper into such use cases. We'll build some real-time use cases on that. Now, so we'll also start from basically we'll be starting from a basic empty GitHub repository. So you know, if you already have a GitHub, you can use that. But if you're new, we'll be building with the empty GitHub repository and we'll be generating from scratch, and we'll improving this application slowly and eventually push it for version control. So eventually by end of this video, you should be able to see my web application like this. It's a web application that you'll be building. So with that, what exactly you're going to need in order to build it? Now I'm assuming that these steps are already there in the video, but for that, first thing we're going to do is Visual Studio Code. And if you don't have Visual Studio Code, if you already have Visual Studio Code, good. If you don't have, I'm going to refer this video, which is kidnoacademy.com/VS Code. This is another video on the YouTube channel itself here. So check the link in the description as well. Now this video is taken from our training program in a Terraform training, and there are some additional steps are required. So if you have a basic Visual Studio Code or VS Code, then that's enough. There are additional things if you want to go a little bit deeper into Python or Terraform or other plugins in future videos, then you can use. Otherwise, you can just simply install the VS Code as well. Then second thing we're going to use is GitHub, which I'll explain you in a minute what that GitHub, probably if you already know. If not, I'll explain that. So again, there's a separate video about GitHub, kidnoacademy.com/GitHub code repository given. You'll also need a Claude Code subscription. There's a free version, Pro and Max version. You can check it out by, again, if you go to, I think it's claudecode.free plan. This is the URL which I'm going to refer, claude.com/pricing. Inside that, this is the one which you'll be looking at, which is a Try Claude. This is 17 version. Pro version, you'll be needing that. Now, later part, you will also need Git, which is, as I said, on your laptop. Git will be used as a client tool on your laptop to any code to be committed and stored in a Git repository. Optionally, you will also need Node.js. So from here in the video, we're going to talk about from a console. But if you want, a lot of times, if you're an advanced developer, you want to do it more from a terminal command line. And if you need a Claude in a terminal and in a command line, then probably Node.js is also will be required. Again, how to install Node.js, there'll be a separate video. So there are some prerequisites required. I would highly recommend you to watch this video till and understand that. And then if you don't have those tools, go install and then come back and configure this again as well. So eventually your VS Code installed, GitHub account created and signed in. If you don't have a GitHub account, we'll also talk about it. Git is installed on your local, which will act as a client to Git repository on a GitHub will be pausing. You also have Claude Code subscription as well as Node.js as well as browser, and this is where we are testing the application. And don't worry, below this description there'll be this video. I'll share this link to this video so you can get it step-by-step instructions on this. So first, what I'm going to do, so first, once you have understood it, first thing we are going to go and do in the video is we're going to create a GitHub repo. So this GitHub repository is nothing but a project folder to store all the changes, everything that you need to track those changes. So this is, we are going to go on a GitHub website. Again, steps are given in that. Once there we have created a GitHub, the next part is going to be the clone the repo into the VS Code. So cloning is nothing but the folder structure that we have created on a VS on the GitHub, that will be brought into the VS Code. So just cloning that, and in future, if you have any other existing your GitHub repo that you can clone. So that's what we're going to do. Again, don't worry, we're going to cover that steps as well. Once that's done, we are going to also sign in to the GitHub through VS Code. So this time we're going to log into the VS Code so that you can, and then from VS Code, we probably configure authentication authorization to GitHub so that next time automatically VS Code, when you do any commit everything, it can automatically go and configure that automatically for you. Then we are going to install a Claude Code. This is what actually is going to be actual LLM. This is where we're going to select the model. Later you select how to, this is a code development and code entire testing, workflow, documentation, everything which we say that code LLM as a code. That's what we're going to use, configure that Claude Code extension. So that's a plugin that we'll be using again on VS Code. How to do, again, steps are there and the further video part as well. Then we are going to create our first version of our to-do application. And for that, we are going to give a simple instructions on this application. And that's what we will be looking and understanding how simple it is. By simple prompt, you'll be able to create an application and we'll instruct what kind of application we want, how we want to be structured, all in this format again on this. Once this is done, then once we have created this application, we are going to do the first push, which means we have to commit. When we commit, it will go from my local laptop onto the GitHub using the source control as well. So it will go and generate this code and push into the code. So that's till now, and then we'll be testing this whole application. So once we've tested, accessed it, tested it, then we are going to actually push it to the GitHub repository. Now this is till now we were using terminal, the Visual Studio console. Later we are going to look at the terminal. So this is where we'll be configuring the command line interface on this tools on here, so that you can understand now from the command line how to do the same thing from the command line within the VS tool. And then finally we'll upgrade this application. So first, initially we created a simple application. Later part we are going to upgrade and add some additional features like due date, due time, and the timestamps as well on this application. And then finally we'll also do some improvement of UI. First was functionality, and this time it was a simple UI application, so you can understand how do you change this UI. And then finally, once we are happy, we test it, we do a final commit and final push on this. And then we'll also configure how automatically it can do, this application can do on. So with that, if you instructions are new, and if you are first time coming to the channel and wondering who am I, this is Atul from K1 Academy. I have close to 2.5 decades of IT experience, and these are some of the clients I've worked with across the globe as well. Let me minimize it here. So these are some of the clients I've worked with, and I've gone from earning less than $100 a month back in 2000, 2001, 2003 to then moving to UK in 2004, 5, and then I've gone to 425, 500, 700, 800, 9, in excess of £1,000 a day here in the UK now. And I run a 3-step framework on to get you from anything from whatever in your IT job to earning in excess of $250,000+ in job with the 3-step framework. If you want to more about, there'll be a link description on how we can help you. So check out that link as well. With that, let's look at the video, and then I'm going to go and wrap it up this. So I'm going to have the video being one of my colleague who will be going in deeper and talking about the same thing here.
All right. So now we're going to build a simple to-do web application using Claude Code. Now we'll create it from scratch. We'll improve everything step by step. We'll also push everything to GitHub so our code is saved and properly version controlled. Now, if you're completely new to this, don't worry. I'll walk you through everything step by step. Now, before we begin, there are a few things that you need to have ready. First of all, you need Visual Studio Code installed. Today, I'll be performing everything on a Mac operating system, but the steps are somewhat similar even if you use Windows or Linux. Now, this application is also called VS Code. This is our code editor. Basically, the place where we'll write and manage all of the project files. You'll also be needing a GitHub account. GitHub is simply an online platform where we can store our code. It keeps track of every change that we make, and that's what version control means. So you just have to head over to github.com and make sure that you're signed in. You'll also be needing a Claude Code subscription. This will allow you to generate and modify code directly in your project using AI. For today's video, I have the Pro subscription, and that will allow you to generate and modify code directly inside your project using AI. So instead of manually writing everything, we'll use Claude to help us build faster and smarter. Now you also need Git installed on your system. Typically, if you're using a Mac, Git is already pre-installed. If it's not, you could simply follow any tutorial online to download it on your system. To check if it's there, you just have to type git --version in any terminal that you open. On Windows, you could do this on your PowerShell. But it should just give you an output of a Git version. That's how you know you have Git installed. And finally, you should also have Node.js installed if you want to use Claude from the terminal. Node.js isn't strictly required, but I'll briefly show you how it works in the terminal at the end of this video. So once you have all of these things ready, we can start creating a brand new project repository. And we're going to do that on GitHub. Now, a repository, or repo for short, is basically a folder for your project on GitHub. It stores your code and keeps track of every change you make. So in the GitHub website, you just need to click on this icon right here, which says New Repository. And you could name it anything you want. For this demo, I'll keep it simple. I'll give the name like to-do -app-demo. And don't overthink the name. This is just for practice. You could leave all of the other settings as default, and you can just click on Create Repository. And that's it. You now have an empty project space on GitHub. Now the next step is to bring this repository into Visual Studio Code. And to do that, we need to clone it. Cloning simply means downloading a copy of the repository from GitHub onto your computer. So you just need to copy this link you see right here. You could click on this button to copy it. And you could head back to your Visual Studio Code. If you get this welcome message, you could just close the tab. You don't need it. All you need to do is click on the Explorer icon, and you can clone a repository. So click on this button right here. From here, you just need to paste the link that you copied and press enter. VS Code will also ask you to select a folder where you want this project to live on your computer, and you can choose any location as you prefer. In my case, I'll just head over to a folder which was called codes. Over there, I'll create a new folder. I'll just call it to-do app demo. This will be the name of my folder, and I'll press enter. And this will create a brand new folder, and that's where the repository will be cloned. So click on open after that. If this tab opens, you just need to click on this checkbox that you trust all of the authors in your parent folder. And once it's done, you'll be inside your project folder, which will be the local one on your machine. This is your project right here. We don't have any files yet, but we'll get to that. Now, before we move forward, there's one small but important step. It's a really good idea to sign into GitHub directly from inside the Visual Studio Code. You could do it from the accounts icon at the bottom left corner or from the source control panel. You could do it anywhere. So you can see on the bottom right corner, it shows that you're signed out. You can just sign in, and you could also use all of the AI features. So let's continue with GitHub for now. Once you click on sign in with GitHub, it will automatically take you to your default browser, and you just need to authorize Visual Studio Code that this is your GitHub account. So if you click on allow, it'll open Visual Studio Code again, and you could see that your whole account is connected. If you go to the profile section, you'll see that your account is visible right here. And you could also manually sign out later if needed. The reason we are doing this is because once VS Code is connected to your GitHub account, committing and pushing changes becomes much more smoother. You won't have to manually authenticate every time. Everything is already connected. So now that our project is open inside Visual Studio Code, the next step is to install and connect Claude Code. This is what's going to help us generate and modify our application using AI directly inside the project. So what you need to do is head over to the extension panel in Visual Studio Code. And in the search bar, you just need to type Claude space code. Click on the first extension, and from there, just click on install. This is a simple way you could install any extensions you want. Just wait for a few seconds for it to be completed. Now that it's installed, you could open the Claude panel inside Visual Studio Code. You should see this icon popping up, and you could just click on it. So the first time you open it, you'll be asked to sign in. The easiest way to sign in is go ahead and click on this button right here. Your default browser should open. And if you're already signed in the default browser, you should get an approve message directly from Claude. So make sure to click on authorize. And then once you get this message, you could head back to VS Code. And you could see Claude Code is open for you right now. Now, one important thing is when you sign in, Claude automatically detects the folder and the project that you currently have open. It automatically knows that you're on the folder which is called to-do app demo, and it could understand whatever structure you have. So you could generate new code directly inside the project, or you could even modify the existing files that are there. In simple terms, Claude now works as an AI teammate inside your project. Now I'm going to ask Claude to create a simple to-do list web application. So in the prompt, I can just tell it, create a simple to-do list web application using plain HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I'll tell it to use 3 separate files named index.html, style.css, and script.js. The app should allow adding tasks, marking tasks as completed, and deleting tasks. So you should explain all of the functionalities you want the web application to have. Today, I'm just trying to tell it that I want a simple to-do list web application, and these are the functionalities that I want. Whatever prompt you have, adding the functionality at the start makes more sense, and how you want the design to be at the end of the prompt is a good practice. So at the end, I'll tell it to keep the design clean and beginner friendly, and keep the code simple and well structured. So you can type the exact same prompt if you're following along, or you could give it another prompt if you plan to make another sort of application. It could be anything. It could be a calculator, an expense tracker, it could be anything. So once I send this prompt, Claude will start generating the files for us. Now, depending on your settings, it might ask you for a confirmation before creating or editing the files. And that's normal. It's just making sure that you approve all of the changes. So if it gives you an option like if you wanted to allow to write to index.html, you can select yes, but I recommend selecting the second option so it doesn't keep giving me the same pop-up for the other files, which will be the CSS as well as the JavaScript file. So click on yes, make edit to all of the sessions. Now, in my case, the model which was automatically selected was Claude Sonnet 4.5, but you could select any other model that you want as well. The default one that it gives you is oftentimes the best option, but make sure you research everything from this section of if you want to use agents or not, what you want in the memory, but then there are a lot of things you could do over here. So for this demo, I let it proceed automatically to how it wants, so we could move a bit faster. But once it finishes, you could look at the project folder. You could see 3 files being clearly visible. The index.html, this just controls the structure of the web page. We have the script.javascript file, which contains the logic, meaning how the app behaves. And we have a style.css file. And this handles how everything looks. So if you open each one of these files, you could see the content that it has, all 3 of them. But now the main part is we want to test if it actually works as we instructed it to. So what you need to do is just right-click on the HTML file, click on Reveal in Finder. If you're on Windows, just right-click on the file and open it on your default browser. It could be Chrome or Firefox. But if I reveal it in Finder, this is the file manager for Mac. You could just right-click on it and open it with Safari. And now we're just going to test it to see how it works. So once you open the HTML file, you should see something like this. And now we could test its functionality. I'll add a new task. So I can just call it have a meeting with John Doe. And I can click on add. So you could see below it has created a small box where you could mark it as completed, or you could even delete it. So basic functionality is there. So think about what just happened. We started off with an empty folder and we gave Claude a clear instruction. And within moments, we had a fully working web application. This is our first working version, the foundation of our to-do app. So now that we have the first version of our working app, the next step is to properly save this version using Git. The process that we are doing right now is called making a commit. A commit is basically a snapshot of your project at a specific point of time. It allows you to save the progress and come back later if needed. So inside Visual Studio Code, you could open the source control panel. And here you'll see all of the files that were just created, like the index.html file, the JS file, as well as the CSS file. These are listed as changes because Git is tracking them. So before we commit, we need to stage all of these files. So besides changes, just click on Stage All Changes. Staging simply means you're selecting which changes you want to include. So since this is our first version, you need to stage all of the files. And everything now is ready to be committed. So next, we need to write a commit message right here. A commit message is just a short description of what this version contains. So you could write something like initial version of to-do app generated with Claude. Now you could also click on this icon right here, which will generate a commit message for you. So let's see what happens if you click on this. This should automatically generate a commit message, and you could use that. So you could see that's what it has given us in a better format. Try to keep your commit messages clear and meaningful. The future you will thank you for this. And from here, you could just click on commit, but I recommend clicking on commit and push right here. If it shows you that it failed to authenticate to Git remote, you could open Git log. Now, in case you face any issue like that, you could troubleshoot it live. Let's see the status of our Git. So you can type git status. It says that the branch is based on origin main, but the upstream is gone. So it means that the local project still exists. The commits also exist. The GitHub repository that it was connected to is missing or changed. This usually happens if you have recreated the GitHub repo or you change the remote URL. Now the work that we have is saved, but let me just check the whole remote right now. So type git remote -b. If it shows the GitHub URL, we can reconnect it properly. So for reconnecting to the GitHub repo, you need to go to your repository on GitHub and copy the HTTP URL, which is this right here. And then run this command, which is git remote set -url origin, followed by the link that you copied, and then press enter. After that, we'll push again. So type git push -u origin main and press enter. So you could see the main branch is created. Now this should reconnect the upstream. It should push all of the commits, and it fixes the branch tracking. So after this, everything should work normally. So if you head over to our GitHub webpage and click on refresh, you should see an index.html file, a style.csv file, and a JavaScript file, all of them visible in the repository. This confirms that everything has been successfully saved and synced online. Now we are in a strong position. We have a working application right here. We have a clean initial version saved, and everything is backed up in GitHub. This is our baseline. So now that we have a working version of the app saved on GitHub, I want to show you another way to use Claude. And this time we're going to be using the terminal. Not the terminal that you currently see right here. Let me just close it. Now, why a terminal? Terminals are super useful because sometimes working from the terminal feels faster and it gives you more flexibility, especially when you're already using Git commands. So what you have to do is inside the Visual Studio Code, let me just close the style.csv file. I'll press / and type clear to just clear the whole conversation. So select this button right here. And if it gives you this pop-up, if you prefer the terminal experience, just click on it. And click on this checkbox, which will launch Claude in a terminal instead of a native UI. So once you select that, and you click on the Claude Code icon again, it will launch a new terminal. And you'll notice something important. The terminal automatically opens on the same folder as your project. This means any commands that we run here will apply to the entire to-do app. which you see right here. Now to use Claude from the terminal, we need something that is called the Claude CLI. CLI just stands for Command Line Interface. It simply means that we are interacting with Claude using typed commands instead of a whole graphical interface. And this is where Node.js becomes important. Now, if you're only using the Claude extension or the graphical version of it, Node isn't really required. But if you want to run Claude directly from the terminal like this, Node must be installed.
Hey, very quickly, if you're enjoying this video and need our help to get into AI job, earning anything from 100,000 to in excess of $250,000 plus, then we run a workshop where we cover a 3-step framework where we take you from not being confident to make you super confident by learning in a project-based, hands-on driven learning with relevant certification. Step number 2, we take you from no interview call to multiple interview calls using our ATS compliant resume interview preparation session, as well as optimizing your LinkedIn profile to build an authority on a profile. And the third step number is then from no job offer to multiple job offers using mock interviews, both technical as well as behavioral interviews. If you're interested, then there will be a link below the description. Get on a call with my team and they will guide and help you further. So check this description below. And with that, let's get back to the video.
So if you don't already have Node installed, you could go over to the official Node.js website and download it. So if you head over to your default browser, just type Node.js and head over to download. You could follow the steps to download it for your specific machine. So you could select macOS, Windows, Linux. You could choose if you want to use Brew or if you want to use Chocolatey, but that depends on this operating system that you have. But on a Mac, you could download the installer and run it like a normal app. On Windows, you need to download the Windows installer and then follow the setup steps. Now, in my device, I have already installed Node, and you could verify it just by typing node-v to get the version of it, as well as npm-v. If both commands return a version number, that means that Node and npm are properly installed. Just a quick clarification, the Node.js allows you to run JavaScript outside the browser. npm is just the Node package manager. It lets you install tools and packages, like the Claude CLI. Now with Node available, you could install the Claude CLI using npm. And the whole command for installing Claude Code is pretty simple. You should just type npm install space -g at Anthropic. That is the company that created Claude. So Anthropic-AI / Claude-code. Let me just make the terminal a bit bigger so the whole line is visible. This is the command that you should run. So press enter. So sorry, my bad. If you're running it on your Linux or on your Mac, you need to provide the sudo command. Sudo command is just giving system level permissions. So type sudo space followed by the whole command name and then just type your user password. And it'll install Claude for you. So after it's installed, let me just type clear. I just need to type Claude. And hopefully the Claude interface should pop up right here. For security clearance, say that you trust the folder. So just press enter. And you can see Claude Code is up and running from the terminal. This already has access to your current folder, which you see right here. So just like the extension, it has full awareness of your project. So you could type prompts directly in your terminal. You could ask it to improve the UI. You could ask it to add new features, to fix bugs, all of it without really leaving the command line interface. Now the main question is, which method should you use? The extension or the terminal? Honestly, both do the same core job. The extension is more visual and beginner friendly, and the terminal can feel faster and it gives you more control, especially in larger projects. Use whichever workflow feels more comfortable at this point, especially when you're learning how it works. So now that Claude is running in the terminal and it understands our project, we could start upgrading the entire app. Right now, our to-do list app is very basic. If you check it out, we can add tasks, we could mark them as complete and delete them, but that's about it. There's no way to know when a task was created or when it's supposed to be done. So let's make it a bit more practical. I'm going to ask Claude to add 3 improvements, which will be a due date, a due time, as well as a creation timestamp for each task. That means that every task will show when it was added and when it's due. That will make the app feel much more real world. So you could use the exact prompt that I'm going to type over here. I'm going to tell it to enhance this to-do app. In the terminal, the way you could break lines is by holding Shift and then pressing Enter. I'm going to tell it to add due date selection and due time selection when creating a task. I'll tell it to display the due date and time next to each task. I'll also tell it to display the date and time when the task was created. I'll tell it to keep all of the existing functionality working. So I'll tell it to keep all existing functionality working and keep the code beginner friendly. I'll also tell it not to use any external libraries. Now for sending the prompt, you just need to press enter. Claude will read all of the existing files, so all of these 3 files, and then begin updating them. So you might see it modify the HTML file to add the date and the input. You'll probably see it updating the JavaScript file, and you could see it adjusting the CSS file as well, so that everything is displayed properly. The most important part is it keeps the existing functionality intact. So once it finishes, I'll refresh the browser and see what is being done. So you could see it's first reading the existing code, it's searching for a pattern. So you could just wait for this to be completed. It can take anywhere from 1 or 2 minutes at most. So you could see it has searched the patterns, it has a clear picture. It is saying that it can update all of the 3 files and add everything. Right now it is asking if it can make changes to the index.html file. I want to give it complete freedom throughout this entire session, so I'll select the second option. So you can see it added 12 lines. It exactly tells us what it's doing to the old files. So you could read the entire description right here, all of the key additions that it made in the JavaScript file as well as the CSS file. Now our job is to simply just refresh the whole browser and check what all update it has made. So if you click on refresh, let me just add a task and see what all things changed. I'll type meeting with John Doe. I'll give it a due date. So let's say the meeting is on 25th of February. The time is 10 a.m. And you notice you don't really have to type anything manually. You could use the up arrow key as well. So I just want to select 10 a.m. and I'll click on add. So after adding it, you'll see the creation date, the due date and time, and the task controls still work. You could click on it if it's completed, and you could delete it as well. Everything is functioning properly. This is a powerful example of evolving an app instead of rebuilding it. We didn't start it from scratch. Claude understood our existing structure and layered a new functionality on top of it. That is how real development works. You improve systems step by step. Now a to-do app is no longer a simple list. It's becoming something practical and structured. So at this point, you can see that our app is working well. Functionally, it's really solid. But visually, we could still improve it a little bit. Now, the step I'm doing is optional, but it's important. because this is where you see how much the quality of your prompt affects the final result. Now the whole design works, but maybe it feels a little too basic. If you want to make it minimalistic, which means cleaner spacing, more softer, less aggressive colors, and less visual clutter, you could guide Claude how you want the app to look like. So I could just tell it to refine the UI of this to-do app. I could tell it to make the design more minimalistic. Reduce the visual clutter. Let's say use black and white color. And we could say increase spacing for readability. And we could tell it to keep all existing functionality working. We could also tell it to add a clear all button. And if you like the layout, you could tell it not to redesign the entire layout. These are really specific details that we want Claude to follow. You could see how specific it is. And I'm not saying to redesign everything. I'm just telling it to improve the look, but keep the whole structure and functionality intact. That whole clarity really matters. So now Claude will go through the entire project again. Now, most of the changes will likely happen inside the CSS file, because that's where the styling lives. Sometimes it may make small HTML adjustments, like if spacing or structure needs minor tweaks, but the logic in the JavaScript should stay untouched. It might just add one button. JavaScript might be changed just because we told it to add a clear all tasks button. But once this finishes, we'll refresh the browser and immediately you'll notice the difference. So let's see what it does. Since we already gave it permissions to edit all of the files as it pleases for the entire session, it won't really ask us for a permission again on which file it can edit again. So let me just wait until it finishes. So you could see it added one line in the JavaScript file and how it updated everything. Functionally, the whole file should stay the same, only visually it should be different. So let's see. So as you could see, it also gave us a summary of all of the changes that it made. So let's see, we'll click on refresh. And you could see the whole design got a bit more minimalistic. It used black and white colors. And let me just add a bunch of tasks right now. So meeting with John Doe. I'll select the date as 25th of February, 10 a.m. I'll click on add. The same way I could add another tasks, which could be drafting a report. Let's say the due date you're keeping it as is 28th, so the last day of this month. And let the timing be 6 p.m. You can click on add. So you could see the whole output that you get depends heavily on how you guide Claude. If your prompt is vague, the results will be really vague as well. If your prompt is precise, the results become precise. So you're not just generating code, you're actually directing it. So you can click on these checkboxes to show that the task is completed, and you can clear all of the tasks as well. Okay, so now that we added all of the features, we refined the design, and we improved the overall experience, now it's time for the final step, which is saving everything properly and publishing the updated version to GitHub. Now you might be asking, earlier we committed the changes manually from the source control panel, which is from here. Now this time I want to show you something different. Claude can actually help us with this part of the workflow as well. So if you go back to the terminal where Claude is running, you could actually just tell it to commit and push all the current changes with a clear commit message. And now watch what will happen. Claude will check which files have been changed. It will stage all of those changes itself, and it'll create a commit with a meaningful message. It'll push everything to the remote repository on GitHub, and you'll see the actual Git commands running in the terminal, along with your output confirm that the successful. So let's just wait for it to be done. So from here, just click on yes. You want to proceed. Now this is really powerful because we're not generating code. We're automating parts of a whole development workflow. So just click on yes. You want to push to the origin branch. So once the terminal confirms everything is pushed, we could head back to GitHub and check if everything is done properly. So hopefully, if this works, you should see a new commit message along with the updated files and an improved version of the app saved online. So you could see it's done, committed and pushed. Let us just head over back to our GitHub page right here, which was this. So let me just refresh the entire page. And you could see so far 2 commits has been made. You can click on that. And you could see the first commit, which was made 35 minutes ago, was when we pushed all of the files. And the second one is what Claude did for us. So you could see the entire commit message that it has kept, which it says that it added due date and time and all of the changes that it made. Now this confirms that everything is synced. Now you could think about what we just did from start to end. We created a simple repository, we generated a web application using Claude, and we improved it with new features. We redefined the design, we committed and pushed all of the changes, and saved everything online with version control. This is a complete development cycle, from an empty folder to a polished version controlled application. And the entire process was guided step by step using AI. Now from here on out, you could improve the app in many ways. For example, you could ask Claude to save the tasks in local storage. You could tell it to add filters like all, completed, or pending. You could improve the layout even more. You could tell it to add animations or even connect it to a backend so that the tasks are stored in a database. And this process would stay the same. You need to describe Claude what you exactly want, and Claude will update the code for you. You could eventually test it and then ask Claude to commit and push it. That whole cycle keeps on repeating. Now, the example I showed you in this video was intentionally simple. The goal wasn't to build a complex setup. It was for you to understand the entire workflow, how you could start off with an empty repository and generate your first app version. The same process works for real-world projects too. If you already have existing code bases, you could open it directly in Visual Studio Code and ask Claude to explain you parts of the code. You could ask it to fix bugs or even refactor messy logic. At that point, Claude really starts to feel like a development assistant, helping you move faster and think more clearly while you build. And that's the complete process, from an empty repository to a working, improved, version-controlled application. Now you can take the same steps and start building your own projects the same way. I hope you found the entire video informative, and with this, I'll see you all in the next one.
Well, that was the step-by-step instructions on how to create a simple web app using the Claude Code in the Visual Studio Code as well. Now, so just to recap, what we learned in this video was we went from empty GitHub repo to a working to-do application. We also did the feature upgrade and then UI improvement to the clean commit and push that commit onto the GitHub. That's basically AI assisted development workflow. Now, if you want to continue improving this app, you can further continue, save these tasks that you've done in a local storage. You could have added filters on all, like some things like all, completed, pendings. You could have put some animations. You could have added some backend databases and backend applications and databases. And some of these things we're going to cover in the future videos, so you can see how the real applications are built now. Not only built, but also tested by QA engineers, developers, and also the documentation, entire workflow on development workflow as well. Now, if this video helped you, hit like and subscribe, and then also do share it with your friends and colleagues as well. Now, the prompt pack that I've used in this video and the entire guide check the description. I'll share the link as well. Now, this whole video is part of a bigger program where we go a little bit deeper into this whole AI, learning right from basics to go deeper into it. Claude is just one part of this entire AI learning. Then there'll be a document. There'll be a link below this video. Check those links if you want to attend the free class. And if you have any questions, if you need any help, if something is not working, just let us know in the comment section. Any prerequisite video is not working, just let me know in the comment section. So we'll make sure that we improve the guide, or if there's any gaps identified, any issues identified, we added. Also, the video was done from a Mac machine, but if something is not working on Windows, do let us know. We'll do another video for Windows specific. With that, this is Atul from Team Kino Academy. I look forward to see you in another video. Take care and bye for now.